Something Sinister is happening to the prisoners at Kingsport Correctional by Colourblindness. I don't want to do this. I need this job. I've been here as an assistant admin for probably about 3 months now, trying to make ends meet, and up until recently, I would have even said that this place is pretty forgettable. That all changed a few nights ago, when Michael, the night warden, called in sick. This wouldn't be a problem ordinarily, but our other night manager was also on vacation until a week after or so. So our CO called me up to see if I wanted the extra hours. Sitting and watching a few dozen inmates sleep for a couple of hours sounded like easy money to me. So how could I refuse? The first few nights, nothing of note happened. Just the typical false alarms from inmates trying to smoke a joint or cause a fight in the shower. But 2 nights ago, my CO told me that we would be getting a surprise inspection from the Department of Health. Something about a new project for prisoner safety. Since this was the first time that I had ever handled something like this, I tried asking him as many questions as I possibly could. Look, what matters is that this place looks spotless, especially the kitchen. If there are any violations, I swear, I'll take it out of your pension, he told me. Immediately, I got my senior officers to start a sweep of our 3 wards, picking up any stray trash, mopping the floors, and we began a cell-by-cell search for any type of contraband. At around 2 a.m. that night, 3 clinicians arrived to begin their inspection. I think I was on pins and needles the whole time that they moved from cell to cell. After about 30 minutes of what seemed like a rather cursory sweep, the woman that was the chief technician gave me a list of 7 prisoners that they wanted to take for further health screenings. Are they sick, I asked, as I checked the rest of the paperwork, a little relieved that they hadn't found anything else to report. No, they're just routine examinations. We pick inmates at random for drug tests, blood cultures, that sort of thing, she responded. Since I was the senior officer on duty, I went ahead and signed off on it, thinking that that would be the last time I would need to worry about it. Now that the prisoners have returned, though, things have gone haywire. That's the best way to put it, but I will try to explain. It started around 1600 last night. I was watching the feed, trying my hardest to stay awake. One of the inmates, 306, was moving around in a cell like he was feeling extra claustrophobic. I decided to go down and see if anything was wrong, since I've never had a problem out of him before. 306 was moving towards the door as I approached it, and began to bang his head sharply against the metallic frame on the inside, causing a wound to open on his forehead. And then he stepped back and raised his hands over his head as though preparing for a search. I opened the cell immediately and stepped inside to look at where he had been slamming his skull against the door, and then muttered, "Turn around for a body sweep." 306 complied, looking a bit disoriented and confused as I did the search. "What just happened?" I asked him, gesturing at the door, but the man didn't say a word. He just sat quietly back down on his bed and waited for me to leave his cell. When I stepped out and closed the door, I got on my walkie-talkie and called Annie, our chief medical officer. She normally works with the women in Ward B, but I figured, given the circumstances, she would make an exception. "Hey, I know it's late, but I need you to check out prisoner 306, I explained when she got there. "Oh, come on, you know you just wanted to see me," she teased as she got out the usual equipment. "I thought the department flunkies just gave this guy a clean bill of health," Annie asked as she checked the feed and watched 306 start acting erratically again. This time, it looked like he was scratching his nails against the cell walls, making his fingers bleed. "Well, they must have missed something," I said dryly. I grabbed 2 of my finest guards and escorted her down to 306's cell. All of us watched in stunned silence through the plexiglass frame of the cell door as he kept crushing his bleeding nails against the stones, seemingly impervious to the pain. As we stepped into his closed quarters, the man looked towards us as though we were strangers, but there was pain hidden in his eyes. That pain quickly turned into rage as he saw the 2 armed guards flank the door. He rushed towards us with lightning reflexes, his teeth thrashing, his nails scratching against us as he tried to attack. It took all 3 of us to pin him to the wall as Annie prepared a sedative, and still we struggled to hold him down. Once the drug took effect, 306 fought for a few more moments, and then his eyes rolled back and he collapsed onto the floor. "Man, Thomas has never acted like this before," one of my men said as they helped him get on a stretcher for Annie. "I'll get him checked out right away," Annie promised me. After she left, I decided to check the rest of Ward A and make sure that no one else was causing a problem. When I got to the upper blocks, 2 prisoners, number 405 and number 400, were staring out towards the commons, trying to see what had happened down below. "Get back to bed and don't worry about it," I told them both. 400 complied, but 405 kept staring. He looked scared, but also a little angry. "Did you not hear me, sir?" I asked him. "It's happening," he said. He placed his hands against the door frame. "What?" I asked him, surprised he had decided to engage with me. "It won't be long. It won't be long, and the door will be opened," he stammered as he started circling his room. He kept looking at the edge of his bed that stuck out ever so slightly. 405, I'm not gonna ask you again. Go to bed," I growled. He then slammed his head against the edge of his bed. For a second, I was in shock as he impacted with the bed, and then my senses returned and I fumbled with the keys to get the door opened. When I stepped inside, 405 was repeatedly pushing his skull deeper onto the indent in his bed. The corner was rammed against his left eye, and blood spilled out onto the stone floor. I grabbed at him to help him off the impaling, and he made a noise that sounded like a shriek. 405 fell to the floor, using his hands to start clawing at his face, where he made the open wound. I took out my taser to stun him. The man screeched again, kicking at me angrily as I hit him several times to knock him unconscious. I stepped over his body as it seized violently, and I locked the cell back, getting on my walkie-talkie to call down to Annie. "Perfect timing," she said. "I was just about to give you a status update." I took a moment to calm myself down, and I listened as she explained what she found from 306. "Looks like you were right. Something strange is moving through his body. I'm running cultures right now to determine what it is, but it's not like any sort of bacteria that I've ever encountered," Annie said. "We might have more than just a single exposure. 405 is bleeding out from a self-inflicted head trauma," I told her. "What?" she asked in surprise. "That can't be a coincidence. Was he on the rosters for the exams too?" I guessed. "Check the others right away. I'll send a few techs to do mouth swabs and take blood," she said. I walked down to the main commons, getting a guard to grab a list of the 7 prisoners that went for the exams. 306, 405 from the men's ward, 211 and 508 from the women's, 118, 112, and 253 from isolation. So far, I hadn't seen any other behavioral changes from any of them, but I figured that it was better to be safe than sorry. The next morning, we had gotten all of them checked out and confirmed that each of the inmates had the same unusual strain of bacterium flowing through their body. I talked to our CO, North, about it, and he called to the Department of Health to get an explanation. "Oh, it sounds like they may have accidentally contracted a bug while we ran tests," the woman on the other end of the phone said. "That's one way of putting it," my senior said. "I feel personally responsible for this incident, Warden. I would recommend that you place the facility on lockdown until we can perform a full analysis of these inmates," she said. "With all due respect, Doctor, it's your fault these prisoners are sick in the first place, and I'm not going to let you in here to muck with my building any further," my CO said. I thought that was the end of it, and we've monitored the 7 inmates since then, finding no real changes in their behavior except that they are all acting extremely thirsty. 405 doesn't even recall hurting himself. But I was wrong. I started my shift last night, and I found that the DOH people were back, despite orders from my CO. We can pretty much handle this ourselves, I tried to tell them. The situation has escalated beyond your jurisdiction, she replied, passing me some paperwork. I checked it over and found signatures from both the Department of Defense and the Office of the Attorney General, giving their project the full authority to perform any sorts of tests they deemed necessary. Is this serious, I asked. That's what we're here to find out, she replied. Well, I guess you have the run of the place then, Doc, I told her. Oh, please call me Meredith. I have acted like I'm okay with this arrangement, but I did a little digging. Meredith Parker called her little group the Janus Project, and I haven't been able to find anything on it in the DoD archives. For now, I can't help but distrust her, especially since it looks like I'm stuck in this mess. Well, everyone, I hope you've enjoyed this story. This is just the beginning of it. There are at least 2 more parts, so be sure to check back in the coming days as we get those updates. My thanks to the author for allowing me to read this. Check out his links in the description below. And if you haven't already, consider hitting the like button and hit the subscribe button to make sure that you are updated when the rest of this story comes out. And as always, thank you so much for listening.